And here we are again with Blavatsky did not unveil Isis. That was also not her intention. Otherwise, she would have chosen the title Isis Unveiled. But she did not. She chose the veil of Isis. Now, what is the basic message of that ancient knowledge? It could be said in one sentence. The entire 10 volumes of the Book of Light, the entire Secret Doctrine, Isis Unveiled, other scriptures by Blavatsky and so forth, is simply do only good and only good will happen to you. Of course, such words raise many questions. Why do bad things happen to good persons and so forth? That has to do with karma. But if somebody does not understand correctly the law of karma and reincarnation, concerning solar systems the same way like a worm, in between stone, plant, animal, yes, even minerals have karma, believe it or not. So you see, by saying do only good, and only good will happen to you, is one thing. But then many questions arise. And this is why, without having answered all those questions, you can't simply live by those words, unless you are an adept, of course, or you are somebody who by, should I say, by constitution, by spiritual constitution, understands immediately. This happens too. Because there are people, dear friends, who by their constitution, by their inner constitution, are so exceptional that they can communicate with other people, even when they are secluded somewhere in the mountains or meditating. Their souls can see other worlds, their different layers can contact with other parts of the seen and unseen world. Now, those people who can do that intentionally, freely, are mostly magicians, white magicians, let's say for now, hierophants, seers, adepts, masters. Now there are others, and I warn always those others to do what they do. And they are mediums. And they can help with the assistance of demonic forces, astral forces, spirits, sometimes cheating spirits who claim to be what they are not, and so forth. They can also get in touch with those other layers of consciousness. But they often are misled, misused, etherically abused, I may add, because those spirits who give information need sometimes substance of the astral, of the medium. So all that is evil. You see, the cities will come to you on their own, by itself, without any effort from your side, other than the effort to become pure. Pure, simple, innocent. Now, when I mean pure, I mean also moral purity. And this is for most people very difficult. Because some think, well, we can live our senses as we like to, and we will have the cities, Those cities or special abilities that you then will get are mostly sorcery. So step one to attain so-called supernatural powers would be moral purity. That means your behavior on the sexual level should be moderate, should not be exaggerated. Of course, the best would be to be celibate. Because the law says that, and let me emphasize this sexual thing, through which we all have gone, fallen more or less deeper, and you see, the Book of Light teaches that, and also, of course, Blavatsky and the Secret Doctrine, that the sexual evolution of mankind should long be over by now. It is not. There's a certain reason, Book of Light explains it. We have fallen, the Manasaputras reacted too late, and so forth and so on. But at least we should try to walk the middle path in all activities of the senses. Meaning, also when we eat, when we drink, and so forth. We should live pure. We should keep our body, our temple of God, pure. When we do that, we will attain the cities sooner or later, if not in this life, then in another. Now you see, in order, for instance, talk about a city now, and Blavatsky abused sometimes her ability of having cities, supernatural, paranatural, paraphysical, metaphysical abilities. She could move things without touching them, and so forth. But you see, she did that in order to attain attention, to attract attention to the teaching itself. That was wrong. That was wrong. She should have remained stuck with the teaching, so to speak, and she would have been on the more secure side. Now, if you move something organically or non-organically, you always need to have the will, see, and the willpower. The city willpower is much stronger than the willpower of a normal person. For instance, I knew a person in Los Angeles who could cause another person to sit down just by moving a finger. Now, this high guru was not a sorcerer, was a guru. Explained to me, well, I get in touch with the etheric body and move just the etheric, and the physical follows immediately. See, this is one explanation. When Jesus rose the dead to life, they were not dead. The etheric body was still connected with the umbilical cord, etheric umbilical cord, and it was possible for Jesus to replace the etheric body, who had already left the physical, back into the physical, and so Lazarus miraculously awoke again, and so forth. Without knowledge of those occult facts, one would think it is a wonder. There are no wonders. Everything that happens is natural. Just because we don't see that. See, every animal sees better than us. Every animal smells or hears better than us. We are evolutionary-wise, physically, the lowest link, the weakest link in nature. The only thing that makes us superior, so to speak, is the brain and the thinking, which is abused so many times, especially not by common people, no, by people who are often very intelligent, and they misuse manas. Of course, they pay the price. Thank God, I would add. So, I mentioned that motion because everything in the universe moves, and science tries to explain that motion by particles being clashed together somehow and then getting into motion. Of course, this is nonsense, because according to Newton's law, even every motion would then have to end. Why is the sun still shining? Why are the planets still rotating, and so forth? Of course, there is a spiritual force behind it. We call them planetary spirits, or other names also for that. Elohim, and so forth. Spiritual powers. Monadic powers move matter. Now, this willpower is sometimes good and it's sometimes bad. It can do good things and bad things. And you pay the karmic price. And only an adept, a master, is free of such karma, although when the masters decided to contact Blavatsky in order to reawaken that ancient knowledge, not all agreed. Not all agreed. That has to be said. Yeah? So they took it on their responsibility and said, let's do it. So, good, we'll do it. All great prophets basically teach the same throughout the ages. And that same is mostly, or all the time, parts or in entirety, the teaching of the Book of Light, also of course of Isis Unveiled and Secret Doctrine, origin and purpose of man and universe. And so, when we, to give you an example, when we want to move something, I mentioned it already, we have to create a willpower. We have to have the will to move that. That comes from deep inside. And it is not matter per se. It is the monad that has that will, that trishna, that desire. This other missing half of science per se, explaining the motion of matter in the material world, this is now added completely also by the Book of Light. In order to warn people, but also to inform people, we want to see what Blavatsky in Secret Doctrine and in Isis Unveiled taught about elementals and elemental beings and elemental spirits and so forth. Now, first of all, this ancient teaching was known throughout pre-archaic times even, among the angels, and then spread to mankind. In those days, the chemist was the experiment. Example, today the chemist makes an experiment in a laboratory, and he looks, this is what happens. So it's actually outside of the experiment. In those days, the chemist was the experiment, and so we call him alchemy. Alchemy. We find that especially in the Chaldean Jewish Kabbalah, about those experiments where they could actually unite with those beings who were in charge of that particle of matter. It happened on a monadic level. And thank God, this ability is lost today, because they would abuse it even more, as we can see how they abuse their scientific abilities in the world just to create war and to kill more and more people and all that. This is all returned Atlantean karma. And the Book of Light explains it in detail. Let them outlive their karma. We have nothing to do with it. We are like a little flower who's just growing somewhere alone. And another flower comes, and another, and so we spread the knowledge. Silently, one may add, compared to what is now trumpeted into the world as science, in order to enslave people, to keep them attached to their senses. All this is of evil, and they will pay the karmic price. Now, thank God, people thought that those para-physical phenomena were just, so to speak, not true, just what somebody believes, make-believe and so forth. So it could grow again on itself, and it could also disappear again.